Warning. The following may contain concepts, ideas, and or reflections unique in nature and not yet approved by government and or corporate entities. This content is for entertainment purposes only and is not intended to stimulate further reflection or to perpetuate additional discourse beyond the scope already outlined by institutional curriculum. Mediocrity, being average, underachieving. The subject of this video is close to home for me. Perhaps for myself and many others, there is a strong desire to be exceptional. And whatever we create or accomplish, we want it to be so good that our skills and abilities are unquestionable. But this is a fantasy and a recipe for inactivity. Rather, it is much more productive to resign ourselves to the truth. No matter how hard you work, no matter how ambitiously you pursue a goal, you will never achieve success or garner the respect of your peers. I know I should lend my talents to the Hallmark's inspirational card division. While on its surface, it appears to promote a lack of motivation. But for myself, it has the opposite effect. The only reason why I'm making videos is because I promised myself that no matter how crappy or flawed, every week I will post a new one. The inception of this topic came from the thought, why does the average person believe themselves to be above average? If someone calls you average, most would take it as an insult, but mathematically, it is the most probable thing to be. Maybe it is because we think that the average is so base, so stupid, so out of shape, that we cannot bear to be associated along with them. Although, if this were true, then you would have probably already risen to your rightful place at the very top of our society. In all of the ways in which we may disagree, one thing that seems to be unanimous is people are morons. What a strange commonality. Of course, every time we declare that the mass of humanity have malformed intellects, we are clearly precluding ourselves from this list. But if humanity is stupid, and we are all a part of humanity, then we are speaking about ourselves. Not directly, of course, but someone else is doing that for you. And if people are, by and large, stupid, where is the glory in being above average? Now, if the average person was seen as a Spartan warrior, then I would understand the allure of being called the best of the Spartan army. But claiming the title of top retard of the Mongoloid horde holds less appeal, at least for myself. And we do tend to keep this sense of superiority fairly close to our chests. For if you make a bold declaration of being better than your average man, then you risk sticking out your own neck and getting cut down to size. No, it is much better to keep this secret under your cap. But for whose benefit? Perhaps we are witnessing a little bit of social engineering at work here. The average citizen is a disgusting abomination. But you're not average, are you, my son? Now that I mention it, I do seem to recall this same strategy being employed on the job site.
Bryan, come here. Out of all my laborers, you're the best. The rest of the crew are so lazy, and they just put in their time. But you're different. You have real potential.
Oh, and how my young heart would well up with pride, and my back would lean into the work with all the more vigor. At least until I spoke to another coworker to find out that our boss had given us all an identical pep talk. Comparing ourselves to others is a dangerous pastime. In finance, it can cause us to take on excessive debt. In sport, it can cause us to sustain an injury. In art, it can cause us to lose the very thing that would have made our art unique. And if we compare ourselves to people who are inferior, then it artificially pumps up our own self-importance and grows harmful self-delusions. It is so much easier to mock our peers rather than to create something, no matter how mediocre ourselves. After watching a guitar virtuoso shredding away, I could take 2 minutes to ridicule him, or I could take 10,000 hours to practice the guitar myself. Clearly, the 2 minutes is a much more efficient use of my time. However, comparing ourselves to others is exactly what the rich and powerful are encouraging us to do. Competition is the means of wringing out the very best in us. Light a fire under our collective asses to motivate us to new heights. Except that most of us will just go up in smoke. This form of competition is artificial, and it has become a caricature of its natural form. worship the winners, and mock the losers. Because society is clamoring ever higher, which is insane, because we have already reached the ceiling centuries ago. The music of Led Zeppelin is much more simple than the compositions of Bach, but the former played to millions of fans who almost worshiped them as demigods, and the latter was background music at an aristocrat's soiree. 80 years ago, professional athletes were appreciated for their talents, but not so much so that they weren't expected to take on a second job in the off-season. We can tell that this has been artificially created, because everyone knows the name of Muhammad Ali, the greatest heavyweight boxer to ever live. But 50 years prior, when there was no television and very little money in boxing, I don't know the name of the heavyweight champion. Not because he didn't exist or he wasn't an exceptional athlete, but just because it wasn't fought at Madison Square Gardens, and it wasn't for a lot of money. There is an art form to capturing victory at just the right moment. Don't tell a story about an athlete sacrificing everything to become best in the world, only to have his knee blown out a moment before getting his professional contract. Unless he overcomes this too, and moves forward to still become an elite athlete despite all the obstacles. I'm not gonna lie, I find this inspirational along with the rest. But also remember that the slogan is typically,
"And despite all the odds, this one man found the will to overcome everything and become the best in the world."
So they are telling us, point blank, that this tale is not the norm. And for every world heavyweight boxing champion, there may be 10,000 other boxers who fell short. And their only trophy is brain damage, so severe that they permanently speak with all the articulation of a dental patient after major surgery. For every artist who quit their job and sacrificed everything to be world-renowned, there are a million others who have a mountain of debt and only a minimum wage job to pay it down. And for every self-made millionaire, there are hundreds of millions of other dupes investing into the bottom of a Ponzi scheme. This poses another interesting question. Is exceptionalism relative? In a war, a heroic fighter could be heralded as the savior of a nation, but in peacetimes that same man could be just an unruly citizen. What changed? Not the man, just the situation. If our rating of quality of character is so fickle, then perhaps it is pointless to rank ourselves in the first place. Additionally, no matter how bad the system is, there will always be those who rise to the top. But their achievements say nothing about the society that birthed them. Whereas the average citizen is indicative as to the overall health of the nation, both in its strengths and its weaknesses. If we take a theoretical chart of human achievements, we can see that the combined accomplishments of the average population can fluctuate widely, but exceptionalism will remain largely unchanged. However, if we delude ourselves into thinking that we are not a part of this mediocre cross-section, and that we are truly superior, that we are just passing through the average horde on our way to eventual glory, then we will likely not take the time to better ourselves or our compatriots on the plateau of the majority. However, the Army understands the value of the average, which is why they have to deprogram their new recruits. A squad is only as strong as their weakest link. As such, the training is centered around elevating the whole, because the average soldier's capabilities is more important than any one exceptional individual's. As such, the Army tells its new recruits that they are garbage and nothing but weaklings, but all the while they march on, do push-ups, do chin-ups, and move forward as a collective average. By the end, most military men are in the top percentile for physical conditioning, but their road to get there was to accept that they were just another average man in an average platoon. Now, before you start dialing the number for your local recruitment office, wait. This is just an example that acceptance of mediocrity can lead to more improvement in oneself than a false sense of superiority. Because what if the entire population trained like they were in the military? Does that take away from your own physical fitness? Or if everyone was clinically obese, does that make you impervious to type 2 diabetes? If you were the only person left on Earth, Mathematically, you would have to be average. So then what do you do? Comparing ourselves to others is a slippery slope, and as the competition heats up, most are content to sit on the sidelines and just watch. Why play drop-in soccer when you may watch the elite athletes perform in your stead? Why play terrible music when you may watch or listen to others play professionally? Don't twist your ankle dancing on the living room floor when you could simply just watch the Bolshoi ballet. Why have mediocre sex yourself when you may view the exceptional sex of others? So many of us are so afraid to appear stupid, plain, average, or weak that the only time we feel emboldened enough to do anything is when we have the backing of a collective, usually corporate or governmental. When we are no longer trying to impress or prove ourselves to others, then we may ask the question, what do I want to do? And because I know that I will make no significant impact on the world and that my actions are just a drop in the ocean, I'm free to do whatever I please. And what's more, I'm not restricted to just one activity. I may run without being a track and field Olympian. I may lift weights without being a bodybuilder, play guitar without being a virtuoso. In fact, there is literally no limit to what I may be average at. And because it requires much less effort to be average at something than exceptional, a regular person may dip their toe into a frivolous number of activities. We have all heard the adage, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. So why not apply that to ourselves? If we have many passions, we can't really excel at any one of them. But who says we have to? From an outside perspective, observing a guy who has laser-like focus on one passion is great, because he may achieve a level in that arena unattainable to a mere dabbler. But from an inside perspective, he has just one egg. Gee, I sure hope it doesn't break. Now maybe I am unique in this, but I have to constantly remind myself to accept compromise, not to aspire to perfection. It is the only way that I can get anything done. I mean, how do you start perfection? What is the first line, the first note, or the first step? But if I rather say, this isn't going to be great, hell, it's probably not even going to be good, but I want to do it anyways. Doing something poorly is better than doing nothing at all. And so I suggest reveling in our mediocrity. And why not? We will all experience mediocrity at some point in our lives, so it is better to get comfortable with it now. If we live a full life, we will all experience a decline in our abilities, our appearance, and our health. But if we are no longer able to be the best, do we stop trying? I hope not. Think for the pleasure of the mind. Exercise for the pleasure of the body. Create for the pleasure of the spirit. And forget about your global ranking. Be mediocre.